So today on the test bench, we have the Ryzen 5700G. We have 16 gigabytes of somewhat fast DDR4 memory. I think it's running at something like 3800 megahertz. It's actually a 4400 megahertz kit that won't quite hit that, but we do have an overclock on the 5700G. And its graphics in particular, I believe that's running at 2300 megahertz, but all of that is sort of on the back burner anyways, because today we're running Ubuntu, and yeah, we're just trying to figure out whether or not this thing will actually run Linux gaming with no real issues whatsoever using Steam's Proton compatibility layer. So we're going to be testing out a few games that are not native Linux supported games, but all that comes right after a word from today's video sponsor, and that is The Coldest Water. Now, this is a fantastic water bottle. It's insulated. It'll keep your beverages cold all day long. It comes in a ton of different colors and sizes. You can get a discount with the discount code down below, HH10, and there's also a link down there in case you're interested in picking one of these things up, entering a giveaway, or just generally taking a look at these bottles. So they are fantastic water bottles. Take a look in the description down below. Now today I'm not really going into the installation process of really any individual Linux distro. Basically, it is as easy as it's ever been. In fact, I would say that Linux installs for the most part with common distributions are actually every bit as simple as a Windows install. So if you've ever installed Windows on a PC, then Linux is a very, very similar process, so we're not going over that. But today, the first game I'm going to take a look at is The Witcher 3, and I have not really taken a look at these games. The Witcher 3 was one I actually did open to sort of tune it a little bit for the performance I was getting. So we're just gonna go ahead and click play on The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt and see if this game runs at least reasonably well here in this Linux compatibility layer. And of course, while I'm waiting for the game to actually start, this is a big deal because the Steam Deck is coming out later this year, and ideally Valve is gonna be able to offer basically universal PC gaming, at least while you're sticking to the Steam platform. The downside, of course, is in the past, Linux has not seen wide adoption, so this compatibility layer and how well it continues to work and its continued development is incredibly important to the success of the Steam Deck. So as the game loads up here, just a couple things. This game is running at 720p and on the low graphics preset because I was finding the performance wasn't actually great when I was just sort of getting the game tuned. The other two games we're going to look at, I haven't even taken a look at whatsoever, so I have no idea how they're going to perform. But this is the 5700G's integrated graphics. There is no GPU whatsoever on this test bench. And as I sort of just start running away from town here, so it looks like we're up in the 40 FPS range from the looks of it. Let's get sprinting up through here into the countryside a little bit. Let's go find some enemy of some sort. Oh, there's an enemy. Let's go find it. So performance, yeah, it's fine for what we're doing. Like it's not spectacular, but at the same time, so when it comes to Linux gaming, like with something like The Witcher 3 here, you're really looking more for a somewhat smooth experience that doesn't throw you off with a lot of graphical problems. It doesn't throw you off with a bunch of crashes or anything like that. You're looking for the experience itself, which performance is nowhere near where it really should be with the 5700G, at least from other benchmarks that I've seen online. If you're running it just natively in Windows, you should get significantly better performance and the ability to run it at higher resolution anyways. But as far as just getting the game up and running, if you told me this was on a Windows machine and I wasn't sort of watching you as you tried to launch The Witcher 3 here, I would absolutely believe that this is on a Windows machine. There's nothing to make me, while I'm in game, just think that this isn't a Windows machine running this particular game. So as far as The Witcher 3 goes, at least based on what I'm seeing here, it's kind of a mission accomplished. Okay, so here we are. This is 1080p on normal settings that we're going to jump into this sort of opening scene and see how this goes. Right now, the game just seems to be running right up there around 60 FPS, so it's definitely moving. And just so you're wondering, I do have the volume off right now. That's by design. It's not the game that just doesn't have audio. It's that I don't want the video demonetized, basically. So let's get these guys moving. Yep, get moving. Okay, so this is sort of an inside scene, so this is unsurprising. So at least in this indoor section, things seem to be running actually pretty well. I'm not unhappy about the way it's going right now. What I'm curious about is when this door opens, what the frame rate's going to do when the sort of scene opens up just a little bit. My mouse is a little bit not properly tuned. I didn't make it. Yeah, so obviously I'm really bad at this game. Okay, so we just had a hard crash there. So clearly, at least from an out-of-the-box using perspective, Proton's not perfect. It can't cover up some of the underlying issues with all games. And frankly, I actually knew that this might happen because I did purposely pick games that were not listed as Platinum support for Proton. So it's not stunning that a game crashed here. I was hoping that I would get through everything and not have any crashes whatsoever, but that's okay. We're gonna go right off into Steam. We are going to move to the last title, which is much easier to run, and that is Age of Empires 2, the Definitive Edition. So obviously, this menu experience is right now abysmal. No way around it. We'll see what it's like when I actually get into a game in like 20 minutes. So this is obviously a really, really bad experience. Right now, it's running at literally a single FPS. Like, I'm gonna go ahead and actually get out of the game completely. And I'm going to try to just restart the game and see if this is going to happen every time. Like, is this just a one-off thing? I do want to make sure of that because, you know, from a demands of the system perspective, this game should have been the easiest one to run, and obviously it's the one that's giving me the most fits. Like, sure, GTA crashed, but this is unplayable. Like, even for a console player, this is unplayable. So this is really interesting. On the second load up of the game, it's running at 60 FPS here. So we're gonna go ahead and hop into a game, and now that it's actually responsive, you know, no problem there. I will say on some of these menus, it's definitely dropping back down to that 1 FPS, but it actually recovered quite quickly. So let's see if we can do anything here. Interesting. So that I don't know how to explain that other than if you have a game that decides it does not want to cooperate, maybe the first step is to actually just restart the game and see if it's going to work. Now, with a real-time strategy game like this, one that's not supported officially right now by Proton, like it's not fully supported, it's not listed as one of those games that is working perfectly with Proton, my recommendation if you're playing this particular title, I would save often. If you're doing like single player games, you know, just save often so you don't have to worry about your progress just going away if it does happen to crash on you. And I'm not going to by any means spend enough time here playing it for hours on end to see if it would crash. However, I will say this, it's currently locked at that 60 FPS. There are some pikemen and whatnot that are gonna completely wreck my cavalry here if I don't get out of the way. Yeah, ever since it got past that first little title screen and popped back from 1 FPS up to 60 FPS, like, it's running perfectly fine now, and my cavalry are about to get just sliced to pieces by these pikemen or whatever, but the game itself is extremely playable. In fact, I would say this is the wheelhouse of Proton and what Valve is doing here with getting all of these older games to just run smoothly and perfectly, or at least close to perfectly. Now, obviously, this particular title has a little bit of room yet to improve. However, it's up and running on a Linux machine, and that is pretty cool, and especially when we start to consider something like the Steam Deck that is already a somewhat underpowered PC as far as, you know, gaming PCs go. Yes, you're going to be able to play games at 720p, probably getting up to 60 FPS in a lot of modern titles, but I really think the wheelhouse is being able to take almost any game from the past out on the road with you, especially these RTS games, because the Steam Deck does have the trackpads on it. you can play a game like this and probably have a really nice experience, provided that Steam can get to the point where these games that didn't originally natively support the Linux operating system and being played on Linux, if Valve can get those up and running on the Linux and doing so smoothly like the gameplay there was after we got past that little hiccup, then we actually should be in pretty good shape, and I actually really like what Proton's doing. Now, obviously with GTA and then the start of Age of Empires there, it's not perfect. And I purposely picked games that are not officially fully Proton supported just yet. So I did that on purpose just to sort of illustrate that yes, you can get up and running with some titles. The Witcher 3 is actually a really nice example of a game that the performance isn't great, but at the same time you can at least play it. But understand that if you're going off script with those games that aren't fully supported yet, you are going to have to deal with some crashes here. I purposely didn't work through any of the fixes because a lot of the time there are some fixes that you yourself as the end user can implement to help mitigate some of those issues. But you have to do all that research yourself, and I was really more interested with the out-of-the-box experience. And Proton is definitely getting better. It's on the right track. It's not quite there as a complete Windows replacement, but if we're looking at the Steam Deck and thinking about, what games you're going to be able to play out of the box and have a good experience with, Proton is making that thing a very serious competitor to other handheld systems like the Switch. And yeah, I'm just really excited to see how the Steam Deck, how much development it gets between now and launch day, how it runs, how SteamOS 3 is going to run on it, and everything surrounding it. But right now, with an APU, which, to be clear, not RDNA graphics, so the performance is definitely not quite there yet. But I'm fascinated to see how this all translates to the Steam Deck when it actually gets out and launches. With all that said, I'm rambling, so I'll kick it back to you guys. What do you think about gaming on Linux right now, the state of it here in late 2021? Are you excited for Linux gaming to hopefully start taking off? If the Steam Deck is successful, then it might push developers to actually natively support Linux. So just let me know all your thoughts in those comments down below. And of course, if you like the video, give it a like, share, subscribe, comment. All those things are very important to the channel. You can follow me both on Instagram and on Twitter at Hoosier Hardware. And as always, I'll let YouTube queue up a couple more videos from my channel for you to watch. I'm Shane with Hoosier Hardware, and I'll see you guys in the next video.